Hello, hello, Jamie. How are you?
I'm very well. It's good to see you, Kia.
Good
Back
to
from
see you
the land of the
too.
US, all rested and healthy, looking well.
Thank you very much. And for everyone else, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're calling in from today. If this is your first time, my name is Kia Cottrell, and I will be your host today. And I am joined with my good friend and lovely colleague, Jamie Pitchforth.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, today is actually our second to last episode of our higher education series. And for Jamie and I, it is actually our last. So if you have joined us live, thank you so much. Don't be shy. Please feel free to leave any questions, comments in the chat window. Let's go out with a bang and make sure today is a great session and we get all your questions answered. Without further ado, well, we have a really brilliant topic today. We're talking about fit for the future, and which really kind of touches on everything that we've been discussing the last 3 months. The importance of the agility and flexibility for universities to adapt and evolve, and in this ever changing landscape that we live in currently, and the landscape that we're going to continue to live in as we move forward into the future. So, Jamie, for you, what does fit for the future mean for universities?
Okay, so I think we're really looking at the university community as a whole with their
Yeah.
strategies, both for today and for the future. I think the best words to describe fit for the future would be agile and flexible IT. So why is that important? I think we only need to look back here, the last 18 months, and in fact, the start of the pandemic. Overnight we were forced for the university communities to move from traditional on-campus curriculum and sort of teaching, education, and research into remote operations. Now, to some who had that flexible, that agile IT, it was a relatively easy task. But for those that weren't sort of fit for the future and ready there fighting, that was a struggle. And when it became a struggle, they had to invest quite heavily. That really meant that in order to them to deliver the operations they needed to deliver, it took time. That affected the students' ability and student experience.
Yeah.
So there were, some real negatives there. So I think having that flexible, agile foundation so that you can move with the market needs, with the needs of the higher education community is very, very important.
I mean, I think you've touched on a really important theme here, and it's this theme around agility and flexibility, which actually we've spoken a lot about. It almost goes hand in hand with this concept of the criticality of having a robust, resilient network and being able to scale and expand and evolve, like you just mentioned, to meet those requirements. So how does Juniper help deliver that?
So I think digitalisation has become an operational imperative that has placed the network very much front and centre as that strategic business asset, as an enabler. And when you start to examine the different strategies or the individual strategies across the departments within a university, when you look at the wider strategies, their visions, their values, the one thing that brings everything together, the common denominator, as I call it, is the network.
Yeah.
And the network there to support and enable a very, very broad range of outcomes, both desired and required. And I think that means that the network has become paramount, and the stakeholder needs need to be captured, qualified, understood. And I think it's only at that point where you've got your building blocks aligned, you can then start to align your IT strategy with your business strategy. And Juniper, as a leader in innovation and networking technologies, is supporting and enabling universities around the world on their digital strategies, on an enablement of new services, new experiences, and really differentiating them so that the student universities can thrive.
I love this term building blocks because I mean, you know me, that's exactly how I view the network. It's no longer just about Wi-Fi and connectivity or mobility. You know, I've mentioned it several times and I feel like I should coin this term, but it's around turning your network into that dual purpose infrastructure so that it can meet those demands above and beyond just that connectivity, and also safeguard whatever those requirements look like for the future. So in reality, we do see a lot of universities who are at varying places of this journey, right? I mean, some are just getting started, some have already cracked the code and are performing brilliantly. What do you see from that varying stage perspective of their digital transformation journey? You know, what do you see from a university perspective?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the universities, without doubt, every university is at a different stage in their, we call it digital transformation journey, but digital transformation means different things to different people. So I think from the university perspective, nobody benefits from having a blank canvas, that ability to start from a point that would be nirvana, the point that you wish you could start from. So it's about building a strategy to accommodate those baby steps of transforming and providing a foundation upon which you can build a digital transformation. So the network, is really, I'll go back to that word, the enabler for digital transformation. And when we start to look at the networking technologies of today, and the innovations that are coming into play around the ability now to move away from just connected devices and connected users into building experiences, assuring user experiences, measuring user experiences based on the needs of those users. When we start to get into that world, then digital transformation becomes a far more easy, far more simplistic. So from a digital transformation perspective, where's Juniper's adding the value is at that very foundational layer as that enabling tool that allows the universities to start their journey and delivers that agility, that flexibility that we don't all know. We don't have a prescribed journey for the next 5 years that we're going to go on. We're starting a journey. Digitalisation is being driven by the proliferation of mobile devices and student requirements, but we don't know what tomorrow holds. So having that right foundation in play is absolutely critical, and that's where Juniper's adding the value.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on with that. I guess I kind of want to pivot just slightly because when I think about future proofing the network, we in our industry, it's very relevant to look at things around cloud architectures. Now, it's easier said than done, right? I mean,
Yeah.
or is what's that migration like? I mean, if I'm a university at the beginning of that journey, I know that I need to deliver a network to solve for today, fit for the future. How does cloud play a role in this?
Well, and absolutely. And I think future programs, applications, what's really driving the word cloud or the cloud platforms now is that the world, the university community has already been on that journey when it comes to server and storage. So a lot of the benefits that, and some of them were perceived benefits that would come from migration to the cloud, have been realized with those server storage environments. And that's really why the network is now following suit. But the network is one of those tools, one of those platforms that has traditionally been used for connectivity. And every year we see more and more students coming in with more and more devices that they need to connect to the network. We're layering more and more services. So that complexity and cost of operation for the network has started to spiral. It's a trajectory that's unsustainable. So where cloud comes into play and why it's important to migrate is that simplification, being able to have that centralized software defined control in the cloud, which reduces the complexities of deployment, it reduces the complexities of day-to-day operations and gives you that agile environment. So Juniper technologies are built, cloud native cloud. We're absolutely there and ready so that as you replace, whether that be a big bang or whether that be a gradual migration. But when you're investing in our technologies, whether it be our wireless technologies, our wired technologies, data center, security, SD-WAN, they're all now cloud native, which means that it's very easy to start to scale out and grow your cloud environments using our technologies.
What I'm hearing though is that Juniper plays a really critical role in this and in that transition and enabling almost a seamless migration for that scalability. And I think that that's really critical right now, especially if you're even a smaller university who appreciates more of that self-paced progression, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's a key word: self-paced.
Mm-hmm.
Here is being able to do it at your own, at your own leisure, let's call it,
Mm-hmm.
without that risk.
So, along with all these new technology architectures, you and I have spoken a lot about the different programs and applications that universities are deploying, especially in the last 2 years,
Hmm.
as we see student and faculty and education requirements evolving. What do you see, or how do we ensure that that network strategy is able to progress in that same sort of capacity as those requirements evolve?
Hmm.
How do we
So I think,
future that? Sorry, go ahead.
firstly, I think cloud plays a key part in that, in this ability to provide a sort of integrated business continuity. So in today's world, the network, is and access to resources is something that is 7 by 24, and
Yep.
by providing that cloud sort of foundation, that environment, we get that again. We get that platform to do the things and that we want to do. There are new technologies, new capabilities that we're starting to see massively come into play in the last few years. For example, one of them would be location services. Now, in the old world, sort of pre-cloud, in adopting location services, with any scale, demands lots of new hardware, lots of new different software and management and analytics platforms. So it brings complexity and ultimately cost. But when moved into the cloud environment with some of the innovations that we're seeing from Juniper, that simplifies that whole process now. So it's now a subscription. If you want to turn on location services, you define which access points and which part of the networks, which part of your buildings you want to use those services, and you subscribe to that. So it's a very, very simple adoption. And because it's simple and it's cost effective, we're now starting to see universities investing in that area. The benefits to the universities that come with that are their ability to deliver new services. But I think most importantly, a word that I'd like to use is beyond the network. So moving on from just that connectivity and services based on connectivity into the world of analytics, being able to harvest data, some of it in real time, and use that data and that intelligence to drive strategies, create new services, but also deliver something to the students that the universities haven't been able to do before. So whether that be monitoring and being able to understand student engagement, looking at attendance, space utilization, there are a number of key areas there, health and well-being being another key one here,
Yeah.
where we can use the analytics, the insights from the network to start to drive these new services. And that's, I think, where the future comes in. It's very much not just about the connectivity of the network, but beyond the network, being able to deliver new innovative services and harvest that important data to allow you to become data driven in your strategies and in your investments.
I think that data insight is probably one of the most critical pieces of all of this. I mean, BLE and virtual Bluetooth, that's been around for a while if we're
Yeah.
really looking at it. But the fact that we're now coupling that with Wi-Fi and being able to deliver that seamless user experience. I mean, I see a comment in the window. Lainey just left. Students, specifically the ones living on campus, need to be able to connect their phones, TVs, PC, and or laptops. 100%. I just traveled internationally last week for the first time in almost 18 months, and going through the airport alone with two phones, smartwatches, tablets, I mean, all of your devices, the demands of users has evolved. And I think that that's really important when you're looking at the different applications that universities are offering. And another point I want to touch on is this term of beyond the campus, because that's become even more relevant, right? Do you see that continuing to evolve for years to come? I mean, this extension of education and removing that barriers for students?
Yeah, I think without doubt, the universities, if you talk to the universities as we do every day, their desire is to get everybody back onto campus. But
Yeah.
one doorway that has definitely been opened and very much highlighted is this remote capability. So delivering distance learning. And what's quite interesting with that is that cold light of day, the universities make good money from international students. So having access to let's call it a global economy, and being able to deliver your university curriculum, teaching, learning, research, etc., in a remote basis, that allows the universities to scale, bring more students to the table. And that's obviously good for revenue streams. That's good for the universities because it creates money that they can then invest to improve on their services and deliver more services and better experiences to the students. So the cycle continues. And I definitely think that at the moment, for the foreseeable future, we're going to live in this world of hybrid and blended education. But I think, once COVID dies down, will those methods and ways of working continue? I absolutely believe that will be the case. Yes.
Just on that theme, we're talking about how those requirements have evolved. What do you see as another opportunity for universities to safeguard their network and their technology strategy for that ongoing evolution of student and education requirements?
No, absolutely. I think the most important thing to maybe recap what some of the things we've said already is the architecture, that foundational IT. Getting that right, putting the right foundations in place, gives the universities the ability to be dynamic, to deliver against the unknown, what might come around tomorrow. So I think that's really the primary area for the universities, is to define, or I say define, understand their stakeholders, understand the needs of the stakeholders, and how technology and the network can enable those outcomes that can deliver against their strategies. And once all of that information is captured, it's far easier then to look and drive a strategy from the business needs, rather than create a network strategy and try to adopt the business needs. So I think that there's definitely a swing round from how things have maybe traditionally been done into far more reaching out into the stakeholder community and really understanding what they need, what their aspirations, what their desires, what their mandatory things are, and how the network plays a part in that. And I'm pretty confident that when they start to look into those areas, what we're seeing is that the network plays a far greater role than anyone would have probably ever expected, particularly around that term that you just said a moment ago, Kia, which is data, the power of data, being able to turn that into something that is meaningful and steer the ship.
Brilliantly said, Jamie. We only have 1 minute left, but I'm going to ask you for your final words of wisdom. If there are any universities who are tuning in today who are still working across disparate systems or legacy network, what's the first step on that they should be taking on that journey to future-proof their network architecture?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the universities currently don't have full understanding of the estate that they have out there, what is valid, what is fit for purpose, fit for the future, and what isn't. And I think going out and really understanding your backyard, what have you got out there, what is fit for purpose, what isn't fit for purpose, and then defining your strategy alongside those stakeholder goals and stakeholder needs to identify, how do we, what are the steps we need to take to move this forward? Where are the areas of focus first? Because you can't just big bang and off you go. Some of these networks have got, thousands of switches, routers, access points, and various other things in them. So it's one that is going to take time. And I think being very calculated, methodical, and controlled, structured is a very, very important thing now.
Brilliantly said, as always. And Jamie, I want to thank you so much for all of your wealth of knowledge, wealth of wisdom, and all the experience you've shared over the past 3 months. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Be sure to tune in again on September 15th, where Eleni and Mike will be back here talking about data harvesting and automation. And as always, if you want to watch any of the previous shows, feel free to check us out on YouTube. Thank you, guys, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.